Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. On October 13th at the Monroe County Board of Commissioners meeting, resident Guy Loffman thanked the commissioners and Monroe County staff for their work, saying that he has been able to pay more attention to the government's proceedings due to the meetings being held on Zoom.
It's so easy to assume that everything is in good hands with our elected officials, and generally speaking, I think it's true. But I really saw it in action, and especially the commissioners yourselves. Looking at contracts for road surfacing and the development thing that affected me, and the COVID and the emergency management. I've been getting much more up close and personal, by Zoom than I usually do. And I want to thank you and say in my opinion, our county is in good hands.
Later in the meeting, Shelter Outreach and Safe Place Program Coordinator Bridget Nasby presented a contract with National Cinemedia to promote the Safe Place program to Monroe County residents in AMC movie theaters.
And so what happens with that is they stream ads for us via different advertising platforms like Hulu, Amazon Prime, and there's a whole big list that are kind of channel focused, and they do that by targeting moviegoers who've been in their theaters. So if you're familiar, your phone has an IP address, and when you walk into a theater, it actually picks that up and then can promote the ads through the services that you use. So that's how we target people here in Monroe County, and they do that with we will have a list of the zip codes that they target as well. So we make sure we cover people who can access our particular program as well.
Commissioner Lee Jones said that she was glad the program is able to advertise this way and that residents will be able to learn about the programs that Monroe County has to offer. The commissioners unanimously approved funding for the outreach campaign. The Bloomington City Council pushed back against the mayor's proposed budget at their October 13th meeting. Mayor John Hamilton introduced the 2022 city budget and warned council members that the 2021 budget will be reinstated if the new budget is not approved.
Several of you have indicated that if particular changes that you believe are warranted are not made, that you will not vote for the budget as a whole. Now, I do not doubt that each one of us, if assembling the budget for the city, would make some different choices, whether minor or major. But tonight, there is one budget ordinance upon which to act. And the council's options, again, for the ordinance are to adopt it as is, reduce parts of it, or reject it altogether. I strongly urge the council to pass this budget ordinance.
Council member Susan Sandberg commented that she would rather renegotiate the budget with the mayor than approve a budget she does not agree with. She said she would prefer to see sufficient funding for basic necessities and wait to fund additional amenities.
So my question is, rather than give us these stark choices, you either accept this budget, hold your nose and vote for it, even though there are parts of it that you think are actually going to be quite harmful to the city, or you scuttle it and cause all kinds of havoc for the city, which I'm fairly certain, or we sit down at the table and we try to negotiate some of these reprioritizations. And as we've just heard, we do have the ability to change this budget between now and the time it has to be submitted under state statute. So again, it's a big question. Are you willing to sit down and continue to negotiate with some of us on making sure that this budget is palatable?
Council member Matt Flaherty also said that he would be voting no on the budget unless changes were made. He said that he did not agree with the budget's inability to meet the demands of the city's climate action plan.
In particular, I described several changes I would need to see to get to a budget that I could support, and those were based on what I see as fundamental and critical ways in which we are falling short, specifically with regard to the climate crisis and the city's adopted plans and goals. I feel I've communicated all of this very clearly over the course of the past few weeks and months. In meetings and communications with the mayor, I've also tried to be creative and flexible on how we could work together to meet what I see as key priorities, and that had been narrowed from a much fuller set of priorities. I believe these were very reasonable, quite limited, and rooted very clearly in the legislatively adopted plans and goals of the city. And I don't feel that our disagreement is a mere difference of opinion with regard to how to meet a particular priority. I do worry that the priority isn't fully shared. One example specifically, it seems quite plain based on council meetings and council member questions that the administration has answered that we are not in a position to implement the climate action plan the city has developed and this council has approved. And this just simply isn't acceptable to me. The climate crisis is a central and defining challenge of our time, including for the city and for people everywhere. It is a significant justice and equity issue. And I see it as central to my job and my role as an elected official to address this crisis, and specifically to hold the city accountable to the plans that we adopt and approve.
Councilmember Isabel Piedmont Smith pointed out the mayor's role in collaborating with the council to pass a budget. She emphasized that both parties share 50% of the budget obligations. That way, the council should have just as much input. Councilmember Steve Volan explained that the mayor can increase funds in the budget, but the council can only decrease funding. He highlighted the fact that the position for a director of climate action has not been funded, and only the mayor has the ability to change that.
According to our newly printed climate action plan, by 2050, there are going to be 49 days a year above 95 degrees. It's going to come as a surprise to no one that one of this mayor's budgets might not actually pass this year. We're seeing open revolt by a majority of council. In my experience and to my knowledge, there's never been a vote to reject the mayor's proposed budget. If it happens tonight, it'll be a precedent of local historic proportions.
President Jim Sims said that based on his colleagues' comments, it is quite clear that the budget still needs work. The City Council recessed for the night and will revisit the budget at 6:30 p.m. on October 27th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. On October 12th, at the Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting, the board discussed the 7th Street Protected Bike Lane project. Senior Project Manager Roy Ayton gave an overview of the project's funding and explained the changes they have made to the contract with Milestone Contractors.
This project was awarded on May 11th, 2021 to Milestone Contractors. The notice to proceed was issued this spring and work began in early April. This contract included the installation of a protected bike lane along 7th Street from the Beeline Trail to North Woodlawn Avenue. The original contract for this project was $2,569,500. Change order 1 will deduct $1,789.98 from the contract is being presented to adjust the quantities for the concrete bus stops, curbs, sidewalks, and pavement patching on the project. Change order number 3 is being presented, and it will add $1,390.67 for additional work that was required for the relocation of the programming of the bicycle counters on the project. Total for the change orders will result in a deduct of the contract of $399.31. And funding for this project is provided by our 2018 Bicentennial Bond Series C and a $150,000 contribution from the City of Bloomington Utilities for the installation of the rain gardens.
Board member Beth Hollingsworth asked about the educational outreach that is being done to reach the public.
I know that we have done public meetings before the project began. We've been in contact with all the adjacent businesses, neighbors throughout the project. We've sent out letters and we've had a lot of conversations. We've done a public service announcement last week just to alert everyone of the new traffic patterns that are involved in the project. And we'll continue to work with all the adjacent property owners throughout the rest of the project as it continues through November.
Senior project engineer Neil Copper shared that they've been getting more questions from the public since the construction is almost finished, and that they are working with the Planning and Transportation Department to decide what future outreach that they can do. The board approved the changes to the contract with Milestone Contractors unanimously. At the Bloomington Utilities Service Board meeting on October 12th, Utilities engineer Phil Peden gave an update on a bid opening for the Deer Park Devon Lane Stormwater Project. He said they have only received one bid so far, and it is higher than the board anticipated.
Yeah, I think it'll likely be a rebid to process, but we'll have to process this and check all their numbers, and but we certainly want to see the number closer to 100,000.
Okay. Director of Utilities Vic Kelson explained that the funding for the project is different from a typical neighborhood project since it is creating new infrastructure in the area. Assistant Director of Engineering Brad Schrader added that this project would count as green infrastructure, which has a budget of $400,000 per year. Kelson explained why the project is a priority for the city and its residents.
This is a neighborhood that is an older neighborhood. It's been there for a long time, and this particular problem has existed for a long time. The entire area that it's protecting is actually very low-lying. So the objective here is to get the neighbors have worked really well with us on this proposal, as have the Deer Park folks. So it's a very desirable project for a fairly large area that suffers flooding on frequent basis.
Kelson said that the additional maps and details will be provided the next time they discuss the project. At the Ellettsville Town Council meeting on October 12th, council members discussed the acquisition of a road leading to the fire station at 5080 West State Road 46. Council President Scott Oldham explained further.
This is the drive next to the fire station that is now being, for want of a better word, and perhaps, well, the fire chief can help. Some of the drive there is actually being dedicated to the town, so it becomes part of our inventory, as it were, or we're giving it a abeyance for this.
Fire Chief Mike Cordman told the history of the road's ownership and reiterated why it is being dedicated to the town.
Some of the road was actually on what was deeded to be the fire station property. So basically, it's the property still belongs to the Ellettsville Building Department with the bond issue. So they're deeding the right-of-way for the road from the building department, the building corporation, for the fire station over to the town of Ellettsville.
The next Ellettsville Town Council meeting will be on October 25th. On October 12th, Monroe County Council member Cheryl Munson gave an update on the holiday that was taken by the Solid Waste District this week and recognized Indigenous Peoples Day.
The Solid Waste District recycling centers were closed yesterday. October 11th. And on October 11th, we celebrate the people who first called this land home. Formerly Columbus Day, it has been renamed to honor the history of Indigenous people. We remember the struggles and tragedies they endured. We honor their place in and contributions to the shared story of America. And we hope we are contributing at the district to environmental justice for Indigenous people and all others.
Next on the agenda, County Auditor Catherine Smith explained the remonstration process currently going on against annexation. She said that the county residents should not be afraid to ask for help and that the county government is attempting to be as nonpartisan as possible.
We're in full-blown remonstration period, and this remonstrance is one of the largest we've ever done. And actually, it's a remonstrance against 7 different annexations. And that's creating a little bit of an issue because the instructions written by the State Board of Accounts actually explains annexation remonstrance process for just one area. And we have 7. So on their instructions, I've had to list 7. And so I've had to write some extra instructions because some of it contradicts what the State Board of Accounts instructions are, because they just cover one, like saying a person can't remonstrate twice. Well, they can if they have property in 2 different annexation areas.
During public comment on general obligation bonds, resident Jackie Porter expressed her concern for the safety of students walking to school on Rogers Street without sidewalks. She said she hopes to see a sidewalk there before she retires.
I work at Bachelor Middle School. I'm a teacher, and you know that Rogers Street does not have a sidewalk. Bachelor's been there just a year shy of 50 years. And the expectation for busing tends to be that if you live within a mile of the school, you should walk to school. However, the sidewalk down Rogers ends at the Bachelor property line. So as a teacher, I often am driving to school and I'm seeing at times students walking to school down Rogers Street, which is dangerous.
Council member Trent Deckard responded to Porter's comment and said he supported investments like these proposed on behalf of the community.
First of all, I do appreciate Ms. Porter's comments earlier. I literally was driving down that stretch earlier today, and my wife and I were talking about the sidewalk need there. I'm a person that I have the privilege of walking my daughter to school, my youngest, in the mornings, and having a sidewalk does make a huge difference on this. And I appreciate not only the comments of Ms. Porter, who did stop at risk to her profession, and all the things that teachers now face with those dilemmas, but also the commissioners for adding this onto the list.
Munson added that the need for the sidewalk has been a problem since the mid-1980s, saying, quote, "It is time to get this fixed," unquote. The general obligation bond appropriations were approved unanimously. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
there for me every day,
believing in me,
showing me what's possible,
I can be strong enough to respect myself
and my body. To say I can rather than I can't.
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader.
To finish school.
To own my future.
To break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
Welcome back to CATSweek. On October 8th, the Monroe County Bloomington Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Committee discussed traffic planning near the new IU Health Hospital. Senior Transportation Planner Patrick Martin explained that IU Health had a traffic study done and the Indiana Department of Transportation approved their plans. However, committee member Sarah Ryderband expressed concern over the lack of collaboration between the Planning Committee and INDOT. She said INDOT often plans 4 years in advance and does not take the changes that are happening locally into consideration.
What we've been talking about along 10th for a long time now, unfortunately, INDOT does not look necessarily at what our plan commissions approve, and they can't anticipate where the city or the county are going to approve new development and allowing large scale development that may then clog the roadways. So there's a disconnect between INDOT and their road studies and what our local public authorities allow in terms of development.
INDOT Representative Chris Wellman said that INDOT is a big organization and Bloomington is just one of its cities.
So we are in development in creating an additional turn lane there from the bypass to Pete Ellis. And that was, I think, was on the amendment that just was proposed last month, right?
But this is all happening very piecemeal, and people don't want it happening piecemeal. We don't want things 3 different projects in that area because it's going to disrupt things 3 different times.
I don't either, but the fact remains that there are we do have fiscal constraints. We have funding constraints. We can't fund everything all at once all the time. And so that's something, a balancing act we're always working with because, Bloomington is very important, but it's one piece of the state and we've got to take care of our assets all around the state.
Committee member Steve Volan reiterated the concerns the committee tried to voice. He said the local concerns should still be taken into account.
Mr. Wellman, I think what you're hearing here is sort of an expression of frustration at the INDOT process in general. The hospital basically only had to appeal to INDOT to get its access to its new location. And what you're hearing is a concern that there is far less connectivity to the new hospital than there was to the old one. There's literally only one entrance and exit to the hospital for the public, which is already a concern on, say, game days or other times of heavy traffic.
Committee member Kent McDaniel commented, as a resident near the intersection, that the road needs work and will require more work with the influx of hospital traffic.
I live on the east side. I could walk from here to the Pete Ellis State Road 45 intersection, and that intersection is a mess. It always has been, and it's going to get a lot worse when you get more traffic. We keep talking about, IU Health says there's one entrance. Well, there are 2. There already are 2. You can enter from the bypass or you can enter from Pete Ellis. and you can do it right now. So it will be a heavily traveled corridor. And then the other intersection is the one at the State Road 4546 bypass, where it intersects with East 10th Street or State Road 45. And if you're coming from the north, there are 2 lanes to turn left. As soon as you turn the corner, there's 1 lane. So it's designed to create conflict.
IU Health Bloomington Hospital is scheduled to open to the public in December. At the COVID-19 press conference on October 8th, Health Director Penny Caudill shared the Board of Health's goals moving forward now that Monroe County has reached a 60% vaccination rate of eligible individuals.
Increasing our vaccination rate will go a long way to easing both transmission and restrictions. Our priority is getting as many people fully vaccinated as possible. And fully vaccinated means that you have completed that initial series, the 1 dose or the 2 doses, depending on which vaccine you've used. So if you're getting a booster, that has nothing to do with whether or not you're fully immunized. You are fully immunized if you've had 1 shot of Johnson & Johnson or your first 2 doses of Moderna or Pfizer.
President of IU Health, Brian Shockney, reported that although there is a decline in COVID-19 cases, they are still seeing patients die from COVID-19. However, Shockney also gave an uplifting reminder that lives are also being saved.
I would, however, like to share one item that recently provided me with some hope and trust, and I hope it does the same for you. I was in the hospital rounding on our team members when the Beatles' "Here Comes the Sun" song came on over the hospital speaker system. Early in COVID-19, like many hospitals, we adopted the playing of that song to highlight the excitement that a COVID patient that was being discharged from home for our team as well as for the patient and their family. And in the South Central region, we have discharged over 1,800 patients that have been in our care with the primary diagnosis of COVID, were admitted just for COVID. To this day, 18 months into the pandemic, I still smile every time I hear that song. It is a reminder of the resilience and small victories that we have experienced through this pandemic. And I'm happy to take questions at the end.
President of the Monroe County Commissioners, Julie Thomas, said that the Township Assistance Fund will be available at least until the end of October, when the governor's emergency order is set to expire. She also urged residents to remain vigilant against COVID-19, even though they might be getting tired of taking all of the precautions.
And it is 18 months. It's crazy to imagine that. And I don't think at the beginning we dreamed that we would have a vaccine so soon, and yet here we still are. And that's tough. And we can't be complacent despite, it's great to have these numbers on the decline, but we cannot be complacent, and we cannot thank our healthcare workers enough, our essential workers enough for all they're doing. But what we can do is help them out by giving them a break, and we can give them a break by getting vaccinated and wearing our masks when we're out in public. All these businesses that are suffering, we can help them, and we should be helping them too. We're tired of COVID. COVID's not done with us. I'm tired of wearing a mask, but we can find a way out of that if we work together, and hopefully we will.
And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.